All right, guys, what's happening? What's happening? Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, April 14th, 2022. This morning, we're going to continue talking about relationships. Yesterday we talked about building relationship capital. This morning, we're going to talk about maintaining great relationships. So what does that look like for you to do? Once you establish relationships, that's just the beginning. How do you actually maintain them? What does that look like? What are the right things to do? What are some of the wrong things to do? How does it get really complicated? When you get a lot of relationships in your world, it gets more challenging to maintain them. And so you have to be conscious of that, and you have to be on top of it to be able to properly create and then also maintain these great relationships. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Let's get started.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right, guys, what's happening? Good morning and happy Thursday to you. We're going to talk a little bit about relationships this morning. Relationships are at the core of progress in anybody's life. If you look at any period of time that they experienced any kind of significant growth in their life, there is a very high likelihood that you can map that back to new relationships that were formed and new opportunities as a result of those relationships. And so when you think about relationships being formed, we talked yesterday about building relationship capital. Well, once you get to that point of building relationship capital, there's a second step to that. And that second step is, how do you maintain these relationships? And it's difficult, guys. The busier you are, the more relationships that you have, the more complex this gets, and the more awareness you have to those relationships. It gets more challenging all the time to keep in contact, because a lot of times the relationships that you have, those folks are busy. You've got a lot going on. A lot of us have families and spouses and children and holidays coming up and all kinds of things that are going on. For those of us that travel quite a bit, that introduces another layer of complication. The last 2 weeks for me were pretty crazy. I didn't have a whole lot of time to do anything other than be present with the people that I was traveling with. And so how do you actually maintain these relationships? There is a process to this. There's a way to, maintain your awareness and maintain these relationships in a way that they continue to deepen regardless of just how busy you are. And by the way, not all of them will make the journey. Not every relationship is going to go from point A to point Z. And we'll talk about that as well this morning. But first, I want to kick us off just by saying good morning to some folks. What's happening, Daniel? Good. Todd, good morning to you. Tammy Clark, my girl, good morning to you. Great to see you here. Steve Flaherty, what's happening, man? Randy, Scott, Benny, my man Benny Fisher just got off the phone with that guy. Now he's here listening to the podcast. Good morning to you, brother. If you guys aren't following Benny Fisher, please do yourself a favor. I posted him in my stories this morning too, but Benny Fisher's a great guy, another contractor from right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you'll be glad you met him, man. He's a great guy. Jared Bird, Bob Bernard. I'm assuming Cynthia's there with Bob. Good morning to you too, Cynthia. And Callie, good morning to you. All right, so relationships are just like anything else in the world. If you don't pay attention to them, they will die on the vine. And so, it is important not just to know how to build relationship capital, but also the most important thing that you can do is to maintain relationships. How do you do that? Well, it's simpler than you think, but that doesn't make it easier. Lots of things going on in our life. How do we juggle them all? Well, it comes down to organization and discipline, right? So for me, I have a purposeful thing that I do. Every single week, I try to cycle through the list of people who are really important to me. And, it doesn't mean that I touch every single person every single week, but I do send, messages letting people know that I'm thinking about them. Just because I am not on the phone with them for hours at a time. Doesn't mean that, Ryan Austin isn't on my mind all the time. Ryan's been a little under the weather. And so, thinking about him all the time. And so I try to send messages when I can, try to, even just send any kind of text message, letting them know what I'm doing. So they know that they're on my mind. Even though I'm engulfed in something, I want them to feel included in what it is that I'm doing. And so I send them a private one-on-one message, or I'll send them a video message when I'm walking down the street somewhere, just letting them know that I'm thinking about them, right? And so ask yourself this question: what are you doing in your life to maintain those relationships, to let people know that you appreciate them, to let them know that they are seen in your life, they are recognized, they're important. And, for me, this has gotten, it has almost been forced to become a process in my life, because there are so many incredible people around me and so many great relationships that I have. And if you're not careful with that, then people can feel, like they're not important to you. And so when you establish these relationships, you go through a lot of work, a lot of progress to be able to build relationship capital. If you don't take the time to maintain that relationship capital, you are making a huge mistake, because you will constantly be churning through new relationships in your life, and you'll never get to those ones that become really special, almost unbreakable. And so how do you do that? Well, there's a couple things that I do. I mentioned one of them. I just send random messages to people, letting them know that I'm thinking about them. Selfie video messages are a big thing for me. So you just hold your phone up, talk into it, and send it to the person that you're thinking about. Those are great, because in a lot of ways, we don't always have time to pick up the phone. That person might not be available. You might not have a lot of time to talk, but anybody has time to send a 30-second, 1-minute video message to somebody, letting them know why they're important, right? And so, that's one of the ways that I do it. The other way that I maintain relationships is like, when I get in bed at night, my wife is, I don't know if she's on here this morning or not, but she can attest to this. When I first get into bed at night, the first thing I do is think about, what happened that day. And from time to time, I'll send somebody a message if I had a meaningful conversation that day, or if somebody's really on my mind, that something's going on in their life, or something, meaningful is happening for them, or they did something meaningful for me. I will send them a message right before I go to sleep at night, just telling them, how much it meant to me, just kind of letting them know that I'm thinking about them, that I appreciate them. And, that has been an incredible way for me to just, have that little couple of minutes of discipline every single night. But also it's more meaningful when somebody receives that message, either right as they're going to sleep at night, or maybe when they wake up in the morning, right? So I, tend to do that right as I'm going to sleep and right as I wake up in the morning. A lot of times, and many of you that are watching this show or listening to this show have probably received one of those messages, right? Where, I'm going to bed at night. I think about whatever it is that, was meaningful to me that day, because I'd spend time thinking about what I'm grateful for at night and in the morning. And so when I'm doing that, I just fire off a message. And what a great way to go to sleep at night on the receiving end of that message. And what a great way for me to end the day every day, thinking about those things that I'm grateful for, and then also spending the time to deepen those relationships that are existing in my life. And so it's a great habit to get into, is to just review the day at the end of the night and then fire off those messages that can be meaningful. And so what I want to remind you guys of is that any relationship, no matter how deep it is, how long it's been, no matter what, there's always a period of time, when you see somebody and you're totally charged up, right? You've had a great conversation, a really electric conversation that charged you up, got you excited. That is naturally going to diminish over time. It's just how it goes, right? We all go back to our normal lives. We've got kids, we've got problems, we've got challenges, we've got businesses. And so naturally, the excitement for your conversation, or the excitement of that connection, is naturally going to deplete over time. If you think about it like the battery on your phone, right? Gets charged up, but eventually, if you don't charge it back up, it goes down, right? And so your job as an individual in that relationship is to keep that charge going, right? To recharge that battery of that relationship. So if you think about that, who are the people who are most important to you? And are you checking in with them from time to time in order to move that relationship forward, deepen that relationship? Make sure that you end up doing some things together that are important, that are changing both of your lives for the better by having a friendship, having a relationship. If you are just kind of maintaining relationships all the time and they're not really going anywhere, I just don't know that that's going to change your life, right? So versus if you put effort into those relationships, if you are consciously telling people how much you appreciate them, how much you see them, what you appreciate about the work that they're doing, the other people that you see them impacting, send messages to these people, letting them know that, and it absolutely will help you maintain and deepen every relationship in your life. The key to this whole equation, and you guys will hear me say these two words quite a bit together, is frequency and consistency. And relationships don't require daily attention. They don't require even in most cases weekly attention, but they do require some level of frequency and consistency, right? And that is a different standard in everybody's life. For me, I just talked to one of my buddies yesterday that I haven't talked to in months, just busy. We're both busy people, but we pick up right where we left off, right? And it's always been like that for our friendship. It will always be like that for our friendship. And those are the types of relationships that I love the most, right? Those ones that are high maintenance, that no matter what you do and no matter how many kind messages you send, it never seems like it's enough. Those are challenging relationships. And that's just the reality of life. You have to choose which relationships are going to fit your personality, your workload, your availability the best. And then you nurture those relationships, right? And so think about that. Who is it that's in your life that makes that list? Who is it that's most important? Who is it that is really pouring into your life and vice versa? There's a lot of exchange of value and values in your friendships, in your relationships. And just make sure, write those people down. I have a list of people in my phone that I scroll through on a regular basis. And that's how I know who I reach out to, right? And so I'm constantly touching, those relationships that are most valuable to me. I try to make sure that I never miss people's birthdays. Every once in a while, that's not the case. Every once in a while, I miss one. But if those people make that list, man, I don't want to miss the important things in their life. And so I try to keep up with all the things that are going on with those key people and those key lists that I have in my life. And I try to be the best friend and the best, other side of a relationship that I can be. And when you do that over a long period of time, that's just how it is. It develops incredible relationships that generally last a lifetime, or close to it. They last a long, long time. And I think that's what we're all after in this world, right? Is to establish those relationships that pour into our life, that we can pour into and make a difference in. And at the end of the day, when you collect a lot of those, when you become an expert friend collector, that is really one of the greatest gifts in life that you can have. So that's my message for this morning, guys. I hope it was helpful. If you did find it helpful, please share it out. Help us reach more people with the show. It continues to grow and continues to reach more and more and more people. Being off for a couple of weeks definitely does impact the algorithm of all of these platforms that we broadcast from. So please help me get it back out to a bunch of people so that we can help more people. We can impact more people. We can get more people thinking about how the way that they view things actually can change their life. And that's what Morning Perspective is all about. So appreciate you guys being here this morning. I will see you again tomorrow morning, Good Friday, same place, same time, right here on Morning Perspective. I love you guys. Thanks for being here.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.